Hello everyone and welcome to another phrasal verb and idioms lesson. Today's lesson is based on business. So you'll be learning idioms and phrasal verbs associated with the world of work and business. So let's get started. Okay, let's get started. You should be able to see the first slide. How many images can you see? You should be able to see 5. And how many idioms are there at the bottom of the screen? Again, there should be 5. So this is a very simple activity. All I want you to do is match the idioms to the photos, to the images that represent these idioms. Let's do the first one together. So the first picture in the top left-hand corner, we can see somebody who is essentially drowning. We cannot see their body because they're underwater, but we can see their hand waving above the water. Now, which idiom do you think matches this picture? Red tape, sink or swim, cutthroat, streamlined, or rat race? Okay, so the only idiom that has any connection to water is sink or swim. I hope you found that. Don't worry about the definitions or the meanings. For now, we will look at that later. Right now, just complete the activity and match the rest of the idioms to the images. Okay, I hope you found that activity relatively simple. And here are your answers on this next slide. So top left-hand corner, we did that together. That was sink or swim. Then we have cutthroat. Then we have rat race to complete the top row. On the bottom row, we have red tape. And finally, streamlined. Okay, so just before we move on, have a look at this slide, which has the phonetic script at the bottom of the page. What I would like you to do is to read each of these words and try to pronounce them exactly as you read them. So the first one we'll do together as always. So the first one is red tape. Red tape. Okay, that's quite a simple one. I would like you now to try to pronounce each of these, and I will slow down and then I will repeat them. So you can pause the video as you try, listen to me and try again. Okay, so for example, what's the first one? Pause the video now and practice it. Okay, so you should have repeated the word, which is red tape. Red tape. And then you can pause the video again to practice it from my pronunciation. Okay, so now please repeat this activity for each of the idioms, pausing the video before I pronounce it, and then practicing again after you've heard me say it. Okay. So the next one is sink or swim. Sink or swim. The third one, cutthroat. Cutthroat. The fourth, streamlined. Streamlined. And the fifth, rat race. Rat race. Okay, so this is just a basic pronunciation exercise for you. I hope you find that useful. Becoming familiar with phonetics is a very, very important way of improving your pronunciation. And not only do the phonetics help, but also listening to the word stress in my examples. So for example, rat race instead of rat race. Yeah, rat race instead of rat race. Okay, so word stress makes a big difference to your pronunciation. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide and let's see if you can remember from memory what these idioms are. Okay, so have a look at the first two pictures and tell me which idioms they are. Shout them out loud. Okay, so you should have said rat race on the left and streamlined on the right. Next slide. Okay, red tape, sink or swim. And finally, cutthroats. Cutthroats. Okay, so well done. What I'd like you to do now is make sure you've written these 5 idioms down. Okay, so you've remembered them, you've practiced the pronunciation, you've said them aloud. Now I'd like you to consolidate this new vocabulary and write it down nice and clearly in your notebook. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, we are at the definitions part of the exercise. On the left, we have the 5 images, and on the right, we have the 5 definitions. So let's do the first one together. Let's start with the top left-hand corner, red tape. Red tape, I hope you remember that one. And let's have a look at the definitions on the right. So the first one, when you are in a routine of working to pay for bills, be successful or fail, very competitive, bureaucratically challenging, or when everything runs smoothly. Which one do you think red tape means? Well, let me tell you. If you guessed bureaucratically challenging, then you would be correct. Okay, so red tape, you can see in the picture, the man has his arms tied. Yeah, he cannot move. He's not free to move and do as he wants. We use this in connection to bureaucracy and legislation, permissions. If you want to start a new business, yeah, let's say you want to open a shop in your city. Is it easy or is it difficult to open a shop in your city? In terms of bureaucracy, in terms of licenses and permissions, is it simple to get these licenses, or is it very long, slow, and expensive to try and get all of these things together to begin doing business? So we call this in English red tape. If it's difficult to start a business, then there is a lot of red tape. There is a lot of bureaucracy to complete, a lot of forms to sign, documents to send, permissions to gain, licenses to get. You know, it's very legally complicated. That's what red tape is. Okay, so now pause the video and complete matching the remaining idioms and the definitions. Okay, welcome back. So you can see the next slide now, which has the answers. So just check your answers, make sure that you've got them all correct. And if you haven't, just change them quickly. And I will help you understand these idioms right now. Okay, so we've discussed the first one. The second one, which was, do you remember what the idiom was? It was rat race. Rat race. I hope you've got that. So rat race is the second one. And this is when you're in a routine of working to pay for bills. This means that it's like a dog chasing its tail. That is another metaphor. So, you know, you work to pay for your life, but because you don't have any money left, you need to work more. And so the more you work, the more you spend, the more you pay, and the more you work again. So it's just like a vicious cycle that goes round and around. You just need to keep working more and more to pay more and more. And this is what is known as the rat race. Okay? So I hope you don't feel like you're in a rat race, because, you know, sometimes that can be very, very stressful, very high pressure situation. It doesn't mean you're poor. It doesn't mean you're rich. You know, this is a situation that both rich and poor can have. So it's not about rich or poor. It's just about working more and more to spend more and more. So maybe you have a big family, or maybe you take a lot of vacations, for example, and so you need more and more money to spend on those things. Okay, the next one, sink or swim, sink or swim. So it's a sink or swim situation. Yeah, it's either fail or be successful. There is no middle ground. You either win or you lose. Sink or swim. Okay, it's your choice. Sink or swim. You either work hard and you be successful, or you're lazy and you fail. Very, very simple. Yeah. The next one is cutthroat. Cutthroat. So this is a picture of an old-fashioned razor blade, as the barbers used to use many years ago. And this means very competitive. Yeah. When you have, if your industry is a cutthroat industry, it's very unforgiving, which means there are no opportunities if you fail. Okay, there is no forgiveness. If you fail, you lose. Okay, this is a cutthroat industry. So imagine if you get cut on the throat, you'll die. Okay, it's a severe, drastic situation, but it's in terms of competition. Yeah, when the competition is cutthroat, you have a very strong competition, and you cannot afford to make mistakes with them. Okay, and then finally we have streamlined. Streamlined. So a streamline is something that's very, very smooth, and we usually use it when talking about processes or systems and automation. Yeah, a lot of businesses, they try to streamline their services or their communications in order to increase efficiency and speed, for example. Okay, so those are the definitions. And now have a look at these questions that you should be able to see on your screen now. And I want you to write these down. Okay, you can write the answers in the forum. Please do that. I encourage you to do that. And I will try to respond to your answers. But more importantly, pause the video and try to answer these questions verbally. Okay, record yourself if you can, if you feel comfortable. Record yourself and then listen to yourself speaking and using these idioms. Okay, the idea is that you use the idiom in your answer. So it's essential for you to practice this orally, to try and get this new vocabulary into your repertoire. Okay, so I do advise you to write it down. Please write the answers in the forum, but also do repeat this orally. Okay, so pause the video and I'll see you in a little bit. So I'm just going to answer some of these questions to give you an example and tell you about some of my experiences, which I hope you can benefit from the listening practice and the subtitles that should be automatically generated on the screen. Okay, so let's begin with this question. How would you deal with cutthroat competition if you had a business? Well, this is a fantastic question, very relevant for me because I have an English school, as you may know, and of course there are a lot of other schools and institutes around the world. So there is a lot of cutthroat competition in this industry because of the number of institutes. It makes competition very, very high. So what do I do in order to deal with this cutthroat competition? Well, first of all, I try to distinguish our school with who we are and what we do. So I try to set ourselves apart from the other schools by telling and communicating with students that we focus on learning through speaking, learning through interaction, through socializing with with native speakers, with other speakers of English. So it's about engaging with the realities of language and of real language. We also do the traditional learning, classroom-based learning, using textbooks, exams and tests. We also do this. But I really believe that one of the most effective ways to learn a language is to be immersed in the language, in the country, in the situation, if possible, or as much as possible, and practice speaking as much as possible with everyone, really. I advocate this strategy, this technique, because it's what I did. It's how I learned to speak Italian, French, and Spanish. Italian, for example, I never studied the grammar. I speak fluent Italian. My writing isn't the strongest. My grammar isn't the best, but it's sufficient for what I need. French and Spanish, I studied a little bit, but again, it was the time that I spent in those countries that really helped me to learn the language and speak fluently. And more importantly, helped me to develop an excellent pronunciation in those languages. Okay. So, and we'll go to number 5 as well. What are the benefits of streamlining a process? Okay, so another interesting question. Again, I'm trying to stay on the topic of business and work in these answers. So streamlining a business, well, I'll give you an example from my own experience yet again. We have lots of students who learn with us online, and we have a lot of students who learn offline. Now, for those who prefer to learn online, it's quite a simple process. They go onto our website, they choose the type of lesson they wish to have. So it may be a conversation lesson, it may be an exam preparation class. They choose that lesson. They then decide which day, time, and teacher they would like to reserve. They pay and they reserve their class. So this process is fairly streamlined. It's a fairly smooth and consistent and fairly quick process to organize your English class. So for a lot of people who work, that is a good solution for them. I would like to work on this and streamline it even more to make the process even quicker and even more simple for students. I think people don't have time for anything anymore. They want to do things quickly, and so I would like to be able to do that with them, do that for them in the future. Whereas my offline students, it's a little bit less streamlined because they have fixed days, times, and teachers. So in that sense, it is streamlined because it's fixed. But when there are changes in a schedule, perhaps a teacher is ill, or perhaps a student is ill, or has to change the day, in that case, I have to change the dates and I have to organize this situation personally. So in that sense, it's not streamlined, and that is something that I really, really need to work on. Because the benefits of streamlining a process is it makes it quicker, makes it more simple, makes it more efficient, and sometimes even makes it cheaper for everyone who's involved, both the business and as a result, the client. So that is my experience of streamlining a process. I hope you have some similar answers, similar in terms of business related, work related. Tell us about your jobs, where you work, and whether you have streamlined processes, whether it's in your company or if you have your own company, how do you streamline your services? Okay, I look forward to hearing about that. You're doing a great job so far, guys. Keep it up. The next exercise that we're going to do is an accuracy activity. Okay, it's designed for you to analyze the form of the idioms that you've learned so far. So you should be able to see the activity on your screen now, and there are 5 phrases. I would like you to read each phrase and find and correct the error in each one. It can be any type of error, so look at it closely and write down your answers. Okay, we're going to check together when you've finished. So pause the video and I'll see you in a second. Okay, welcome back. Thank you for completing the activity. I hope you found it simple. I'm sure that you found that the errors were all grammar related. They're quite simple. Okay, we didn't want to make this too difficult for you because it's more about remembering the idioms and what they mean rather than looking at the grammar and the details. Okay, so yeah, we won't go over these answers, but they were simply, past simple, third person, wrong use, wrong word in the idiom. So there are a few very basic errors, which I'm sure you didn't have any problems completing. Let's move on to the next slide now. So now we're actually looking at collocations. Okay, so these are not phrasal verbs. They are collocations. They are word pairs, that words that go together to form a new meaning. Okay. So in this activity, we have divided the word pairs and you need to reunite them. Okay. You need to find the word pairs and write them down. So, for example, let's do the first one together. Junk. Junk. Now, is it junk brand, junk calling, junk mail, junk market, junk of mouth, or junk campaign? You may be really confused. You may have no idea. If when you move on to the next word, if you don't know how to match it, don't worry. Just move on to the next one and try to use a process of elimination at this stage to complete the activity. Okay, so you may have heard this before if you're tech savvy, if you work in technology or in engineering, perhaps, where you're using a computer regularly in English. Actually, the first one is junk mail. Junk mail. Junk mail is email that you receive, essentially that you don't want. You consider it junk mail. So it's email that you haven't asked for, but is being sent to you, usually for marketing purposes or trying to sell you something or try to get your opinion on something. Okay, so that's the first one, junk mail. Pause the video now and try to match the rest of the collocations. Okay, so here you have the answers on this screen. I hope it wasn't too difficult for you. Perhaps some of these are completely new. So we have home brand, junk mail, marketing campaign, word of mouth, cold calling, and down market. You may want to put the video back and listen to my pronunciation again, pause the video and try to repeat them. That could be a good idea for you to work on the pronunciation before we progress with the next activity. Okay. Now we'll look at the definitions and how to use these collocations. So similar to before, we have a matching activity. The images represent the definitions to these collocations. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to connect the collocation to the image, and then you'll be able to get an understanding of the actual definition, what it means. Again, let's do the first one together. So top left hand corner, we have home brand. Home brand. So home and brand, two individual words, we put them together and they create a new meaning, a new noun. So in this case, home brand is the final picture in the bottom right hand corner. We see a tin of baked beans, British baked beans. The most famous brand of baked beans is probably Heinz beans. So Heinz, they make ketchup, mayonnaise, sauces, these things. However, the photo shows the supermarket's brand of beans. Okay, so this is what we call the home brand. So it's not the famous brand that everybody knows the product for, but it's rather the supermarket's brand that they have created, and they usually sell it for a very low price compared to the original. Okay, so can you now complete the activity, match the rest of the collocations to the remaining images? Okay, so here are the answers. Junk mail, cold calling, marketing campaign, word of mouth, down market, and finally home brand, as we did together. Okay, these are the answers. You should get a good idea of what they mean from these photos. So let's just go through them very quickly. Yeah, junk mail we've discussed before. Spam, as it's also known, it's undesired email, basically. You don't want it. And it's usually sent to you by companies who have found your email address somehow, somewhere. Okay, second one, cold calling. This was a form of marketing, very popular perhaps back in the 90s and the 80s, where companies would phone customers and offer them their services and products. So before email was invented, we had cold calling. So the reason it's cold is because they didn't know the client or the potential client. Yeah, they would just call people randomly and hope that they would be interested in their product and service. And we have marketing campaign. This one perhaps you already know. A marketing campaign is a marketing plan. It's a strategy that companies will use to produce their marketing and to sell their products. We have word of mouth. Word of mouth is another marketing tool. So word of mouth is simply where people tell more people about something, and those people tell other people, and everybody's telling each other. So the word spreads, yeah, the news spreads to everyone. Next, we have a down market. Yes, a recession or a crash. This is a down market, obviously, when the value of the stock market drops. It can be a very difficult time for a lot of people. People lose money, businesses, they stop hiring people. It's usually a negative time in the economy. And finally, we have the home brand, which we discussed before. So for this activity, what I would like you to do now is to actually write questions for me or other students in the forum. Okay, so try to use questions using these collocations correctly, and be creative. Okay, write down some questions. It can be personal, it can be about business, it can be about work or experiences. Write them down, use the collocations, practice using them, and I'll try to reply to as many as I can. But it's a great idea if you can answer other students' questions, and then perhaps they can answer yours as well. Okay, so it's great to work together, help each other out, and everybody's learning. Okay, so that pretty much sums up, another phrasal verb for you, that pretty much sums up this lesson. There is an extra activity for you. It's not compulsory by any means. Have a look at the 4 questions that you can see on your screen and write down some answers for them and send them to us on our Facebook page. We'll be happy to read them, to correct them, and to write an answer back to you. Okay, so thank you so much for attending this lesson. I hope it's been beneficial for you. Again, have everything written down, have all your examples written down, but be practicing this in speaking. Okay, again, I cannot utter enough that you need to use this in speaking. Use this language in speaking and record yourselves. Okay, it's a great way of improving your language skills. Okay, so good luck with that, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson of the course.